Get the conversation going.
Oh, we got up to 11 now. Alrighty, thanks everybody for jumping on and working with us with the technical difficulties. Today, just a brief overview of what we're doing. Just going to talk about the basics of Rocket League if you're brand new to the game, what Rocket League's all about, talk about forming teams, getting some practice ideas going, as well as some resources at the end, hopefully keep your program successful in the coming season. My name's Andrew. I am the Rocket League manager and vice president at Oregon State University. I also have dabbled in high school coaching, but primarily my responsibilities are in coaching.
How's it going? I'm Chase Chatfield. I'm a middle school educator in Van Cleve Middle School. Started our program a couple of years ago and watched it grow from 5 kids to almost 35 across four different games if we get Splatoon going this season. So excited to talk about some Rocket League today and how to kind of get that started and maybe get some interest going at your school.
So going over just the basics of Rocket League, if you're brand new to the game, what are we talking about here? So Rocket League really doesn't have a true analog. It's not like a lot of FPSs where you can draw comparisons between games. It's very unique in its own right. The best described as an arcade racer meets soccer. One of the great draws of Rocket League is playable on all platforms. It was one of the first games to get cross-platform between all consoles and PC. And it's free. It's free on Epic Store. It's free on I'm pretty sure every platform that we have available to us. So it's excellent starter esport for budding programs. It's also super user-friendly, easy to watch, and easy to pitch to administrations if you're getting a program started.
Yeah, definitely. The free part is probably the easiest thing to get people interested in, and just being able to have your players practice at home, or to be able to just download it to multiple systems in your school without there being any overhead.
So how do the mechanics of Rocket League work? It's very simple. There's not, whereas in like Overwatch or League of Legends, there's characters to learn, there's maps to learn. It's very simplified in Rocket League. All the maps for competitive play are standardized. They follow the same layout. Aside from the setting that they're in, you might be underwater, you might be in the desert. It's principally the same maps. The cars that you can choose to use differ slightly, but the hitboxes are so marginally different that the only differences will be noticed at the highest level of play. And even then, pluros seem to dabble between different cars. So really it's whatever aesthetic matches your style, whichever you like the best. And
Yeah,
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and with the car styles, you really get to see some of your students' personalities come out and be able to talk about why they chose that and be able to, generate greater, camaraderie and team synergy, just by potentially designing the team car for your school when you guys compete, and be able to see, how they present themselves online.
And as far as gameplay goes, like we said, it's essentially soccer with the ability to fly. It's very fast paced, but super easy to digest with that real world analog. And one of the things that does set it apart from just going out into the field and playing actual soccer is the boost mechanics, which we'll talk about in a little bit, that allow you to actually jump up and fly around and interact with the field and the ball in sort of 3 dimensions, as opposed to the 2 that we're constrained to in real life. So talking about the map, this is again the standard competitive map layout. There's some silly ones that you can play casually, but these are the ones that we'll encounter during game days. Note the pitches on either side, red versus orange, or sorry, blue versus orange. The ball spawns in the middle for the pitch, and there's little blips, kind of maybe hard to see on the stream, but blips around the map that signify where you can go to pick up boost.
So looking at some of the key vocabulary, you'll hear kids call out demos. It's basically just destroying the player's car. It can be used as a strategy, and sometimes it can just be used to get under the skin of the other team and get them off their game. A lot of times you'll see people apologize for doing it because it's never intentional. Just you're going supersonic speed, it happens. When you're grabbing boost pads, these are the two main boost pads that you're going to see while you're on the field. The large one is a 100% the moment you run over it, and the other one is 12%. So that's where some of your higher players will constantly have boost, and they'll be able to path across all of these to maintain the level that they have. Your three basic positions are your striker. It's the player that's controlling the ball and it results in a score. Your defensive player, while every player is a defensive player, you may have that one guy that just kind of hangs out there and just kind of gets in the middle of everything and messes up the momentum of the other team. And then you have your goalkeeper, which is also everybody on the team. Whoever's in the best position to keep that ball from going in, because they can come at you at weird angles, at high speeds, at low speeds, bounces, and all kinds of stuff. So being able to practice all three of those and getting skilled at them is very important.
Yeah, and at the highest level, a player will rotate through each of these positions, 20, 30 times in a 5-minute match. So very important to be versatile. So again, if you're brand new to Rocket League, not really sure what the game's all about, there's some great ways to familiarize yourself with the game being free. Just downloading it and jumping into free play, driving around the map, getting a feel for your controller and how you can control your car. Once you start feeling good with that, playing offline matches against bots, and then a step above that, just playing against real people online is the best way to expose yourself. If you want a taste of the highest level play, there's 10 seasons of RLCS that you can go back and watch. We have one of the best series ever performed, linked at the end of this slideshow. I encourage you to check out if you haven't. And also, there's a ton of user-made content on the internet, YouTube videos, just lots of stuff that you can use to get ideas of techniques, sort of maybe the subculture of Rocket League, just a lot of things you can check out on YouTube.
And especially for you coaches that esports may have dropped into your lap because you're the IT guy, or you're the teacher that everybody knows just plays video games, but this may not be your style. Being able to go on YouTube and just finding a bunch of different content creators, from the ones that their job is like freestyling and just doing cool shots, to those that kind of explain as they're playing every step that they do. And then there's tons of informational ones where it breaks down what boost management is, what are rotations, and then as you find those that speak to you, that helps you understand the game, then you can explain that to some of your newer players. And if you happen to have some high-ranked, well-experienced players, they can build off of that and kind of just make sure that the lower elo players are catching up to be competitive that season.
Before we start talking about roster formation, something that comes up a lot with players getting into Rocket League is camera settings. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of combinations of settings that you can use while you play, and none of them are wrong, none of them are right. It's whatever is preferential to you. For your players and for you, I do recommend playing around with these settings before you get serious about playing online. You can look at what the pros use, you can just suss it out over a couple hours of play, but it's important to familiarize yourself with this menu and adjust as you feel like things become more comfortable with you in the game.
Yeah, and definitely when you're watching some of the YouTube videos and their camera settings are what you're looking, if you like how that looks, then you can kind of figure that out. I actually found the settings that I like off of TikTok. I saw a guy playing, and then I searched who he was, and I went through a couple of videos in the hopes that it would pop up settings and things like that, and it did. I paused it, changed it. I'm not going to say I got any better, but it was easier for me to watch the game and kind of keep up to it with my own game by doing so.
Yeah, and what I have here are my settings, and I often get roasted for them because people say my car's too far away. But it works for me. It's different from what other people use, but that's one of the great things about Rocket League is it's really whatever works best for you. You can still be competitive. All right, we'll talk a little bit about roster formations now. Give this over to Chase here for the rule book.
So on game day, this is what a game day would look like. You have a substitution window. That's really important because in Rocket League, you are able to look up the other players to kind of understand what their ranks are. And after some experience, you'll understand what's expected from certain ranks. There are some of those that maybe they haven't played a lot of ranked, but they've grinded mechanics and they're really good, or maybe they were just carried by a buddy and it's not a real rank. But you get kind of a good idea of what it is. So that substitution window is really important within 15 minutes because you'll be locked in, and the next thing you know, that's your team for the match. We know, like today, we had technical issues, so that comes into play. And sometimes it's in a classroom. Sometimes your kids are released from school a little bit late because they had to do makeup work and they don't get there in time. So there's a 30-minute lobby, a 30-minute window in there, grace period. But the key is to make sure you're communicating that with your other coach. And that you're letting them know that, hey, we're on the way. Our computers had an update we didn't know about that we tried yesterday. I mean, there's plenty of things. And through Play Versus, the great thing is that we have Discord, we got email, we got phone numbers for all coaches on your game day screen, and then you can just send a message through all of those and figure out what's best for them. Match creation, as long as you don't change it in your computer or on your Xbox or PlayStation, whatever you're competing on, it'll pretty much stay the same. So that's also in the rule books that you don't have to worry about memorizing or taking a screenshot. It's all there, but we try to keep it as car versus car. There's nothing extra special. The super bottom line basic DFH stadium. There's no different tiers. Not a lot of distractions with these. We keep it 3v3. Now, I put an asterisk there for the home team is blue. Sometimes, we have a local team here that their school colors are orange and we're blue. They may be home, so you know what? They're going to go orange. We're going to go blue. And ultimately, the field's the same on either side. Some people do have, I'm better on blue than I am orange, but that's one of those things that with coach camaraderie and talking with your team and the other team that you can definitely figure out and still have a good time.
Forming rosters in high school?
So we left this blank because there's really no way of explaining it because you have no idea who's going to show up. The way I pretty much did it was I had my high experience, good technical players together and then just kind of bundled them by rank. And as they grow, then they can change from team to team. Currently, we're fielding 3 teams. We have 1 varsity and 2 JV teams. And all of those can be interchangeable with each other up until playoffs, then when you have to actually lock in a team that'll compete in playoffs. But your roster is going to be ever flowing, and it's going to constantly change with students that get pulled for academic stuff or they're dual sport, and so they have a competition in another one versus yours. Heck, they get in trouble at home, and so esports is taken away. There's a lot of different things that happen. So having a good understanding of what your players are capable of, and especially the synergy that they have, because if you're blessed with a bunch of grand champs, well, those grand champs may be great individuals, but they may not play well together, and so you may have to mix it up a little bit, and that just comes with working on the climate and culture of your team and how you run your esports program, and give them an understanding that we're not a solo queue group. You don't have to do it all by yourself like you would if you were at home just logging in for a couple of games, but we're working as a team, and if anything, that's going to be the hardest part of your roster is moving folks from that solo queue mentality to working as a team and trusting that they're going to do what they say they're going to do versus in solo queue where you have no idea what's going to go on.
All right, I'm going to echo a lot of the same sentiment that Chase just expressed. Just trying to transition players who may not have played on a team before to the sort of the team mentality, is one of the biggest things, looking for players that have potential at the collegiate level to make that transition. But also, trying to be flexible with scheduling. Kids coming into high school, or it's like from high school to college, don't have a standard schedule. They might be taking evening classes. They might have a huge load with other extracurriculars or sports in college. So just making sure that you're trying to accommodate as much as possible the players and the situations that they may face as either new or returning college students. And so just competitive plus the life balance, interchangeably, it's huge trying to balance those two things. So yeah, just trying to be as flexible as possible and as open as possible with your players as they transition to this new stage of life. And before we move on to practices, it's, I think, important to note the types of players you might get in your program and what sort of their rank means. Rank isn't the end all be all, but it's certainly a decent snapshot to get started with roster placements. This is data from the second to last season we had in the game for 3 versus 3 game mode competitive. And basically the takeaway is gold and plat's top of the bell curve. Those are your quote unquote most average players. And so diamond and champ is actually, according to the data, pretty uncommon or rare. And the GC and even the supersonic legend, the highest rank players, are very hard to come by. So knowing where your players are placed along this bell curve can give you a decent sense of what they'll bring to the table, but it's certainly not the end all be all. It's communication and team synergies as well. All right, we're going to talk about Rocket League practices now, hosting them for your programs. Um, yeah.
All right, so in our practices, uh, you have, as you see there, fundamental skills from mechanics, position, rotations, boost control, communication. There's a lot of different things that you have to cover. I strongly recommend that you allow some of your higher end players to take leadership on that, especially if you're new to the game. But typically your coaches are going to be, like myself, I'm much older than my students, so I may actually have a better game sense of how some of these things work, even though they may be better at the game than me. When I'm sitting back, I can see what they're doing and kind of coach them from that point. We've already talked about it twice: communication, solo queue to team comp. The hardest thing that I can get my players to do is to talk to each other. And then sometimes the hardest thing past that is not roasting each other when they do stuff. But that's part of the process, and getting them to focus on the game. But your mechanics are just what can you do with the car and the ball together. Position is where are you? Do you know your area of influence? If low elo players are going to need to be closer to the ball, higher elo players can be further away because they can recover a little bit quicker. Rotations, probably the number one, in my opinion, the number one hardest thing out there of knowing where to go because everybody wants to help. And so your low elo games are going to look like your elementary school 10-year-old, 11-year-old soccer games where everybody's just hitting at the ball and then it pops out and they all run after it again. And that can be frustrating, but that's also part of it. Boost control. Every level has their own boost control, and the higher you get, the better you're at it. The lower you are, as soon as you get it, you use it. And just kind of working your players through those different processes when you're looking at VODs and videos and stuff from gameplay, and finding the pros and the cons that you did in the game that created the outcome that occurred.
So in terms of what practices might look like, sort of the most basic and what we're probably all used to, regardless of the game, is creating a practice schedule. In high school, that might look a little more structured than in college, but just making sure you have a foundation and something on a calendar so that people can have something consistent to show up to. Setting player and team goals, be it per quarter, semester, be it by week, be it by year, having something that your players can try to reasonably achieve to keep them motivated. That's not just winning tournaments or making playoffs, just to keep morale high, to keep players engaged through the short and long term. And in terms of like actual mechanics and like actual skill building, There's a lot of drills that you can perform, a lot of training packs that are built into the game and community built. So for lower elo players, we're looking at the training packs that are built into the game, which we have an example of in a few slides. And as they sort of excel past those that were built into the game, going to the ones that are community built for sort of higher elo skills and ideas. And then, of course, lastly, scrimmages, which is just scheduling sort of friendly matches with other schools or teams.
And to build off the scrimmages, especially if you have more teams, more than one team or more group in your program, internal scrimmages are so important, right? It does two things. It builds some competition within the group, the desire to beat each other, but it also shows why certain people are on certain teams and are the starters versus the backups or the second or third team, depending on the size of it. And that's really important. Plus, with that, you get the opportunity of being able to see and help develop your players' characters. Because, I mean, if I beat one of my friends, they're going to hear about it, right? But to what extent do we go beyond just a simple GG, and having that in here towards fellow teammates really will help develop your young players into young adults that are respectful across all spectrums, not just online.
And to build off that too, even doing sort of like team mix-ups within your program, so not necessarily varsity versus JV or whatever teams you've got, but like actually mixing the players within them to see how they adapt and play with each other. But really the point is, as Chase said, is building camaraderie, building a more of a social bond over actual skills in those cases. But be it the team versus team or team mix-ups, those in-house games are very, very important.
Yeah, and if you're not sure how to mix those up, there's tons of stuff online where you can just put players in and it's just a random draw, and go from there. Other examples are like if you do a balanced team where you list your players from the highest level to the lowest level, and then you match them from top and bottom, so your high and your low play together, and then it works its way towards the middle, and kind of a balancing act. And having those lower elo players play with the higher ones can see the gameplay differently than they're accustomed to, and they'll learn way quicker. So this is an example of my practice. So when they get here, they have a warm up. We call it a gas all star, and so that's within Rocket League in the training. There's your standard goalie, aerial, and striker packs from. They have got rookie, pro, and all star. And so I want them to get through each one of those at the all-star level with no resets within 10 minutes, which means it's perfection. Like they have to go. Working on your aerial control, so the pillars map, for 5 minutes. And then you make it harder on your higher level players. You make it easier on your lower level players. So pillars maybe, look, I just need you to go around once. Your middle players, I need you to do a figure eight. Your higher level players may be, I need you to constantly be rotating while you're going around the field and stuff. Free play is working on dribbles from controlling the ball on top of your car, doing one bounces, going left and right, and working on car management. And then finally, after 20 minutes of play, it's a break, no screens. We walk away, go outside for a share, whatever the case may be. Then our practice goes into a training packet. We'll have a QR code that you can scan, and I think a link later on that has a whole bunch of them that I use. You can find ones that work for you and then change like the objectives of each one of those. And this one is just working on a particular skill. Like we want to hit the ball harder into the goal instead of, so we're going to do ground practice, and you have to get it in with at 50 miles an hour or harder, and go from there. And every time you do that, you can go to the next shot. If not, you reset, you try again. And then skill of choice, they're all at different levels, so they get 5 minutes to go practice that one thing. Some kids may be just trying to get to the ball first and get a first touch on kickoff. Others may be trying to do a flip reset that they've been working on. Then from there, we'll do a casual game just to get our game comms and everything going. And then next we play ranked games because video games are fun, but at practice we also need to have an opportunity to be serious. And when your rank is on the line, and say you just made plat or you just made diamond 3, it's or any rank for that matter, and you've been grinding for it, you're going to work especially hard to try to maintain that. And so ranked games are a great way to put a game day competition feel at a practice with to give them that feel so they know how to act under pressure. And then finally, after each game, there's a 3-minute break. And so in our group, we do 10 push-ups and 20 squats. And for a coach's incentive, I tell them that on a ranked game, if they play and they the other team scores no goals, then I do the push-ups and squats with them. If they do something like a Brazil, which is they win 7-1 or something along that line, or a certain number of demos with a win, an in-game challenge, then I do it with them. I do a lot of push-ups and squats because once they know coach is going to do something, they work a lot harder for some reason. It's not always fun, but it helps build more trust between me and them. And if it puts me in shape, then so be it.
So this is just an example of what we're looking at with the training packs. If you go into, when you launch the game, click game, there's a training option, and this menu will pop up. Free play is a lot of what Chase was mentioning with the warm-ups, loading into map. It's just you and the ball. You can set unlimited boost or go for boost pads. Just a great way to warm up your hands. And then you start getting into the preset training packs, which is the aerial, goalie, and striker tutorials. When you click into those, there's different difficulty levels that you can select. And then again, once your players surpass the skills being taught there, they can start going into that customs tab, which has a ton of community-generated content that can give you anything from warm-up shots to flip resets to musty flicks to whatever your heart desires, and that can be built into a solo practice training pack. So yeah, that's just to familiarize yourself with how that looks. So for VOD reviews, it's really unique. Well, not unique to Rocket League, but one of the built-in tools of Rocket League is a replay function. After your players play a game, be it a ranked match, scrimmage, or tournament match, they can save the entire game to their computer and basically share it between computers so that you can go back and review it. With analyzing actual gameplay, it's more important to look at sets that were close as opposed to blowouts for either team. And you want to notice good plays and try to encourage those, as well as maybe work with the bad plays and not necessarily try to call anybody out, because you want to try to be as constructive as possible. But look at instances where maybe the team cohesion isn't quite there, and then try to brainstorm with your players ways in which, in the future, if they get into a similar situation like that, they can address it more appropriately.
And giving your players an objective while they're doing the VOD review, instead of like, all right, we're going to watch this and we're going to talk about it afterwards. Right. So if we give them a list of things that they're going to be looking for, it could be what are 2 things that each player did well? What is one thing that each player needs to work on? So it gives them an opportunity to kind of look for stuff. And in my experience, you'll be amazed that they accept the constructive criticism because they probably know where their mistakes are and what they need to work on. And it opens up their line of communication to where you can step back as a coach and not have to joystick so much when you're working with them, because they're able to, someone will take the lead and take point and make the adjustments in game. If someone's not rotating right or if someone's ball chasing too much, they can do that in game because they're recognizing it. And if they've been called out on it enough, then they're like, well, that's something I need to fix, and they may step up and say, hey, let me know when I'm ball chasing to back off, tell me to, I need to rotate out or something, because they know where their weakness is. And you'll see slowly but surely with the amount of time that they practice and they watch this stuff, they're going to see their mistakes and they don't want to be that player, so they're going to work on trying to fix it. It's not going to happen overnight, but at the very least, if you understand that that's what's happening when you're playing with your team, you may practice that one thing in solo queue where you're constantly focused on your rotate. You don't care about winning, but you're focused on making that correction so it becomes muscle memory and more of a practice.
It's something I've done too, building off of VOD reviews, is if you feel really comfortable with your mechanics in game, or if you're hearing from your players that there's maybe certain mechanics or certain ideas that are they're struggling with during games, is over the course of a month of play, you can start collecting these reviews and curating certain VODs together to sort of build workshops. And so something I did with my high school team is they were having a really tough time rotating through the defensive line. And so I picked 3 to 4 games. I uploaded 2 of them to YouTube with my own commentary, and we watched 2 of them together with the idea of, okay, where are we doing? What are we doing wrong on defense, but also what are we doing right, and how can we try to adapt and do better in the future? And so, VOD reviews don't just have to be, a one-off. It can be, these sort of long-term collections that you can turn into informative workshops that you use for players at the time and even in the future as sort of look back resources.
Yeah, and definitely through playing with PlayVS, you can go on the through Discord and say you're not a VOD aficionado and you're still new, or even better yet, instead of you guys talking about what you do good and what you do bad, reach out to some coaches and say, anybody want to do a VOD review for us? And you can send the video to them, they watch it, they give their commentary, it's completely unbiased, and then it comes back and they're going to point out all the things and that you may have seen, but you may not receive the same because it's from your teammate or it's from your coach because you have a lot of familiarity. But you have somebody else that's seen these issues, and they'll say the pros and cons just like they will. But sometimes hearing it from a different voice is more beneficial.
So this is just an example of like a play schematic that you might want to keep in mind when looking at VOD reviews in terms of rotations. Again, one of those sort of higher tier skills that's tough to ingrain in with players. And so on offense, sort of the cyclical nature between positions 1, 2, and 3 and how they interact with each other to try to get the ball into the opposing net. Probably not worth talking about in depth here, but knowing that these resources exist and that they're very well applied to VOD reviews and just being able to identify good versus bad rotations and then how to fix it from there. And then again, for defense, same idea, three different positions, cyclical nature in approaching the ball, trying to keep it out of your net, and then of course applying these schematics to your VOD reviews as you review them with your students.
And definitely, we showed that the blank picture of the field, the aerial view. Print that sucker out, right? And then you can put something tangible in front of them and kind of point and click, and not point and click, but you can point it out and that type of thing. Over here, behind our crest is I made a flag off of Amazon that is that exact field, and we'll pull it out and we'll put little cars on top of it, and move them around and put positions and then say, what do we do here? And they're allowed to move it around physically, and so it helps add that extra kinesthetic learning that you can't get as well when you're playing because you don't have full control of the entire field at one time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, utilizing aerial view of the map and just like physically creating these schematics can help even the highest teams sort of suss out the finer points of rotations. One of the tools that I've used in the past, specifically targeting communication, is actually recording the player commentary as they're playing a game. The Rocket League replays are awesome for mechanics, position, rotations, but it does not capture what's being said during a game. So either having a player perspective that you can pull from, maybe they're streaming on Twitch, or even just sitting in the Discord call with them as a spectator in the game recording, or even just recording the chat itself. And as long as you have the game to tie with it, you can identify areas of dead air that maybe should have had communication or perhaps the players are too conversational at times during a high stress moment, and a call got missed or drowned out by conversation. So having that tool to identify those problem spots and really create a concise communication system with these communication reviews can be very helpful.
And the other thing that could really help is if you have a player that looks to play at the college level. Um, some colleges are club level to where it's like anyone can show up, and then there are some that do full to partial scholarships, and those coaches want to know what those players are like in game, and it's hard to provide that if you don't have recordings like this. I mean, it's not always necessary because I mean you have tryouts, and they can view them in other forms, but having these in examples like in their element, and they're not trying too hard while the college coaches and recruiters are watching and stuff, is a great example for those coaches to see what they have to work with, and things that will, if it helps their program out.
And a final note on communication: this one of the systems that's used a ton at not only just like playing ranked, but also at the competitive level, is the first, second, third system. So once your players feel really comfortable with their positions, but not necessarily rotations, you can implement a communication system where players will call out basically where they are in line to approach the ball. If they're first, that means they're on the ball, they're attacking the ball, they're trying to shoot or pass the ball. Second position is trying to receive that ball or rebound, and third, sort of the one in the back, waiting to fill the holes or potentially catch a lob ball that's coming towards defense. Same thing applies for defense. First is first person to try to save the ball, et cetera, et cetera. But once your players feel really comfortable with sort of the theory, I guess, of positions, and want to get better with rotations through communication, then the first, second, third system works very well. Alrighty, so last but not least, some Rocket League resources. We have just a bunch of hot links. I'm not sure if we'll be sharing this after the fact, but there's a ton of links here to help you with your play versus play, getting you in touch with Discord support, and then at the end there's the RLCS Season 5 finals that I mentioned. If you're brand new to Rocket League, not really sure what high level play is all about, that's probably the best set you could ever watch. And then finally is the training packs that Chase has curated.
Yep, and when you use those in your practices, have your players save them, have them put it in as a favorite, so that if you do something like I do where you put on the board and you're like, this is what we're doing, or even if it's just verbal, then you can call out the pack, they can go into their favorites and they find it. Because if not, you're looking at a 16-digit code that's both letters and numbers that you're going to have to write or say out each time. So if you use one and you like one, it's there. Plus, if you have this available to your players already, then they can kind of go through and figure out, oh, I want to work on this, I'm going to do this one, I'm going to like this one, that type of thing. And they'll work on their own practice. So on this one, I have it broken off into like of an entry level and then an advanced one. And so based on skill level, then you kind of determine what you need, how you can use each packet to your skill level, and most of them can be used multiple different ways. And I will say this, that wasn't my list. That's a shout out to Coach Tony out in Colorado. I played in a tournament. He was played in a Balance 2 tournament with him this summer, and he gave me those to work with. And that was the first time I had played Rocket League, and so I just got my driver's license, and I didn't know how to do anything. And by the end of the summer, I had felt useful on our team, and that was a good goal to have in some cases. And I just encourage you coaches to play with your players if you're allowed to, and definitely while you're at school, and to kind of get in there and feel what they feel, so that you can help support them through any struggles that they have while they're at practice or during competitions, so you have that like sense of gameplay with them.
Alrighty. Yeah, and that's what we've got for you. So I think we're opening it up to Q&A now.
Yeah, we got a few minutes. If anybody has any general questions or any specific questions, type of stuff, then please put them in the chat. And as soon as we see them, uh, Andrew or myself will jump into the answer. I see a couple of things. I'm definitely ready for this season. We have a lot of competition at our school right now with 3 full teams and 4 subs, so everybody's kind of pushing their way towards making their teams and getting on the roster each game day. But at the same time, I can change it up as needed based on attendances and things of that nature. Thanks for having us. Appreciate y'all coming out and watching. Hope you learned something.
Thank you guys.